This is Algoa Bay, one of the richest ecosystems found on the African continent. Many marine birds and mammals congregate here to feed and reproduce. A very diverse marine ecosystem surrounds this bay, something that can be truly appreciated from the air. This is the Alexandria Sea of Sand, the largest expanse of uninterrupted coastal dunes in the Southern Hemisphere. Two large rivers feed Algoa Bay with fresh water, and what is even more astonishing about this coast is that massive volumes of fresh water seep almost invisibly under the dunes and into the bay. The large amount of fresh water that this bay receives is one of the main reasons for its immense marine productivity. Here, healthy populations of pelagic fish play a vital role in the coastal food chain. Large concentrations of sardines and anchovies attract a great diversity of marine predators to Algoa Bay. Not surprisingly, this is the place where we find the largest gannetry in the world, as nearly 200,000 Cape gannets congregate every year to breed and raise their chicks on the magnificent bird island. Not far from Bird Island's majestic lighthouse, there is another biological treasure. The last stronghold of the African penguin, the island of St. Croix. Today, nearly 50% of the world population of the African penguin is found here in Algoa Bay. The African penguin and the Cape gannet depend on a reliable supply of food while breeding. Adult birds spend long hours at sea searching for pelagic fish to feed themselves and their chicks. For the African penguin, foraging trips are even more challenging. These flightless birds swim great distances and dive for several hours to find enough food to sustain both themselves and their young. As their chicks grow, the demand for food increases, placing greater pressure on their parents. Finding enough food during this time is critical. The success of the breeding season for both gannets and penguins is determined by a delicate balance, easily disturbed by any sudden change in climate and food supply. Every breeding season is a gamble for these birds, as they face many dangers out at sea. An attack by one or more of their natural predators can prevent adult birds from completing their breeding season. However, these events are rare and have little long-term impact on the island's population. Human activities, on the other hand, account for the catastrophic decimation of these marine birds in southern Africa. the healthy condition of Algoa Bay at present is rather unique along the African continent. Historically, most of these coastal productive waters were heavily exploited, and the commercial activities had a massive impact on the entire marine ecosystem, particularly for marine birds. During colonial times, the commercial rush for large-scale mining of bird guano stripped most of these offshore islands. This guano layer was the ideal spongy nesting habitat for the African penguin. Its harvesting forced the burrow-nesting penguins to nest completely exposed on bare rock under the harsh African sun. The removal of fresh nesting habitat for penguins has an even more lethal impact today as our planet warms up. Penguins evolved to withstand cold waters and are therefore well insulated. Today, adult birds, chicks, and eggs are exposed to extreme temperatures on calm days. For adult birds, these conditions cause serious heat stress. This is equivalent to a human standing under the sun in a thick rubber wetsuit with no fresh water to drink. On such hot days, the situation can be so unbearable that it is not uncommon for adult penguins to abandon their eggs and chicks and abort the entire breeding season. Unprotected chicks exposed to cold weather are also victims and perish of hypothermia since they cannot find shelter to stay dry. In the past, the Cape Colony also needed protein, and these offshore islands were targeted as the main source of fresh eggs and bird flesh, particularly those of the African penguin. The massive harvesting of eggs reduced the African penguin population dramatically. Within a period of 30 years, on Dusson Island alone, a staggering 13 million eggs were harvested from nesting penguins. The next blow to marine birds came just after the Second World War, when industrialized, large-scale, commercial pelagic fishing for fish meal along the west coast depleted the African penguin and Cape gannet's main food source, anchovies and sardines. Scientists have found that Cape gannets on the west coast responded to this lack of food by feeding chicks with low-quality fish offal from fishing trawlers, resulting in very low breeding success. Many birds also responded by moving away from their traditional breeding offshore islands on the west coast. The massive human impact on the African penguin in the last 100 years reduced their original population by more than 95%. This is a historical picture of Dusson Island on the west coast of South Africa. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were nearly 1.5 million African penguins on this island. Today, there are fewer than 26,000 birds left in the world, and each breeding pair is now precious. Modernization also brought additional problems for marine birds. The increased maritime traffic exposed these birds to massive oil spills that further reduced their numbers. Today, all these offshore islands and their marine birds are protected, and we may think that at last these birds will have ample time to recover from the heavy exploitation of the past. The reality, however, is very different. Despite the environmental protection of the main breeding islands, the numbers of African penguins have continued to fall by 60% in the last 5 years, and these birds are now dangerously close to extinction. Using the latest technology, and with the support of fisheries and the national parks, marine scientists are working on the largest concentration of African penguins found in Africa on the 2 islands of Algoa Bay. The use of cutting-edge technology is finally revealing the main reasons for such recent population decline. Scientists are using the breeding penguins to find the elusive answers. A high-tech backpack is attached to selected breeding birds. The device then records their data continuously for several days before it is collected and analysed. Here we see the display of a complete foraging trip for a bird spanning over a 20-hour period. The red line represents the position of the penguin with respect to the water surface. While the penguin is travelling to its feeding grounds or resting, it remains close to the surface. Once it reaches its destination, it starts diving to depths of up to 70 meters in search of food. The water temperature is also recorded and represented by the blue line. It clearly shows that these penguins search for deep, colder waters where it is more likely that anchovies will be found. These data, combined with real-time GPS tracking of the penguins' movements, give scientists a complete picture of the foraging effort of a breeding adult. A typical foraging trip will be a distance of no more than 20 kilometers from the island, and the birds will travel at night, diving just below the surface. As the morning breaks, they will start searching for food to replenish their energy. They will take several resting intervals between dives, and at the end of the trip, they will hunt to fill their stomachs with fish for their chicks. After many years of data collection, it is now clear that breeding African penguins are sensitive to commercial pelagic fishing near their breeding islands. This graph represents the travelling effort by breeding penguins on the 2 main islands in Algoa Bay. The before and after comparison shows a considerable reduction in the distance travelled by breeding penguins once St. Croix Island has been closed to commercial seine fishing. At the same time, more breeding birds were able to successfully complete the breeding season. It is clear now that in order to successfully protect the marine birds of Algoa Bay, commercialized pelagic fishing around the main breeding islands of Bird and St. Croix needs to stop. The African penguin story is teaching us a valuable lesson. In order to protect our unique endemic marine birds, it will require the protection of the ecological integrity of Algoa Bay. Commercial fishing needs to be managed responsibly inside this highly sensitive marine ecosystem. Many of the mistakes of the past were due to a lack of knowledge, but today that is no longer the case, and we now have the ability to make informed decisions to manage and protect our natural heritage. Algoa Bay represents an oasis of hope for marine conservation, as a true jewel of the African coast that needs to be recognized internationally for its marine and historical heritage. Protecting and managing the pelagic fish stock in the bay is paramount to maintaining its rich biodiversity. Algoa Bay is the last refuge and stronghold for marine life found nowhere else on our blue planet. And so it now becomes our responsibility to protect this unique coastal habitat. This is without doubt the biggest lesson learnt from our charismatic African ambassador of this bay.
Chi ha voce là, e andavo